Hello, this is Chuck Ridgway, Automation Technology Manager at Horner. Thanks for joining us for another Tuesday live stream. Well, we think we've got a good topic for you today, an important topic. Here it is. Licensed features on the Horner OCS. Now at Horner, our philosophy has always been we try and give you just as much as we can for as little as possible. That means as many features, as many functions as we can give you in our OCS all-in-one controllers. We want to do that. But unfortunately, we can't give away everything. So there are certain features in certain situations where we do need to license for. And that's really what the topic is all about today. Now, this is the part of the program where I bring in our product manager, Casey Gardner. But for some reason, there must have been like an RJ11 cable or something that got snapped between the 20 miles that exist between downtown Indianapolis and here. So for the second week in a row, I'm not able to bring Casey Gardner. But keep this in mind. Casey is standing by to answer questions, to get your comments, to hear your ideas, whether it's on this topic or not. And he's basically standing by almost every week. And you don't get that kind of access to the product manager at the big boys, right? You don't see the Rockwell or the Siemens guys, the product managers, hanging out, chatting once a week. So if you're watching this on replay, keep that in mind. Join us once in a while live if you can. Okay, let's take a look at how we're breaking down today's topic. We're going to talk a little bit about why some features are licensed and not everything is free. We're going to talk about the parameters of the licensing, because I know sometimes licensing evokes some sort of fear or just the thought that, geez, it sounds like there's ongoing costs involved. What's all involved in the licensing? That's something that's important for you to realize. Also, we're going to talk about product line by product line, what features are available for you to field install or field license. We're going to go through the licensing process, which has really simplified over the years. And as always, we're going to try and take the theoretical and turn it into a hands-on with demonstrations throughout. All right, so why are some features licensed? Why do we do this? Why isn't everything just included and free? Well, usually the reason we license a particular feature is because we ourselves are paying a license fee to a third party who owns a portion of the intellectual property that we're using to bring this feature to you, the customer. And if we don't bring that licensing fee, at least don't pass something on to the customer, and we add it to the cost of every unit, that means that we have to raise the sale price on every single unit sold, even on features that don't necessarily get used by a high percentage of customers. And on some products, especially the micro OCS, which is very cost sensitive, they'd be a lot less competitive if all features were included. So again, this is not something we prefer to do, but there is a reason why we do it. So what are the parameters of this license that we're talking about? Well, first of all, every feature that we license is on a per unit basis. So if you have a unit that needs to support WebMI, you need to have that unit licensed for that feature, and it's on a per unit basis. But it is only a one-time upgrade cost for that unit. There is no ongoing or recurring fees or any kind of subscription requirements or anything like that. You're effectively going to be upgrading the unit, licensing the unit to support that feature. You license it one time, and then for the life of the unit, it's going to support that feature. And any subsequent firmware updates you might do on that particular unit in the field, no problem. It's not going to impact that unit's ability to support that feature. Now, some of you may ask, well, what happens if I need to replace a unit for whatever reason? A unit that's been licensed and I have to replace it in the future. Now, you can transfer licenses from unit to unit. You just need to contact our tech support team and they can get that taken care of very quickly. So it's not something you can do yourself, but it's absolutely something that can happen. You just need to talk to a Horner support person. Now let's go through product by product, or at least product line by product line, and talk about the licensed features that are available to you for that product. And let's start with the XL series, our XL Prime series, and then we're also going to lump in the X5 unit with these other two product series. The reason we're doing that is because the X5 has always been kind of this unique unit, which has a lot of the functionality of an XL series unit in a package that looks a lot like a micro series unit. So the X5 from a licensing standpoint really gets lumped in with the XL and the XL Prime. Let's start with WebMI. WebMI was the very first feature that Horner licensed and is, of course, available for all Horner OCS products that are modern, at least if they have an Ethernet port. And there is a free version of WebMI you can use. Now, it's limited to one web page and a maximum of 5 variables. But if you use that, I mean, that could give you machine status and the current status of 2 or 3 key process parameters in a web page that's effectively free. So you can use WebMI for free, but it is significantly limited. If you want to take advantage of WebMI in a more advanced fashion, we have 2 licensing tiers. There's an unlimited version, and then there's one in between with, I think it's 20 pages and 100 variables or something like that. But we'll go through that here in a little bit. Now, another feature that's available to be licensed with the XL, XL Prime, and the X5 is enhanced IEC. Now, some of you are thinking, well, wait a minute, I thought Horner supported IEC for years. What is this all about? Well, keep in mind, our standard IEC is available, is free in every product that it'll run on. You know, really, think of it from the XLE and XLT on up, all the series it's available. But what is enhanced IEC? Well, enhanced IEC is a licensed extension of that, which gives you additional capacity. So instead of 10,000 variables, it gets you up to about 70,000 variables. It gives you additional speed because it eliminates a layer of firmware, and it gives you simulation capability. So there is a lot to offer there with enhanced IEC, but it is a license per unit feature. Now let's talk about MQTT Spark Plug. What is that? Well, that is one of our more popular licensed features. MQTT Spark Plug is really the industrial IIoT push protocol that has gained the most momentum in the field by far. Now, MQTT in general, as a generic type protocol, that's very popular in a lot of different arenas, but from an industrial standpoint, it's really the spark plug variant of MQTT that has the most market share for sure. Now let's talk a little bit about J1939. Now, J1939 is that vehicle or mobile communications network that Horner has supported forever. And we do have the capability of licensing with J1939, but the way we typically handle it is if you're needing J1939 on a project where you've got a standard OCS, XL series, or XL Prime series that has a single CAN port, then you just order the unit from the factory with J1939 already installed. But it is feasible that at some point in the future we'll make that a licensed feature that you can enable. You could take a standard unit and you could add J1939 to it. But for now, you just need to order it from the factory. Now let's talk about micro OCS licensed features. Now, what's brought really this topic to bear is the fact that last week we released firmware version 15.7 in the micro OCS that unlocked 2 major things. First thing it did was it unlocked OCS I/O support. So that new, really fantastic I/O family that's been added to the Horner product line is now supported by the micro OCS. And then the other thing that firmware version 15.7 brought about was the availability of 2 new field licensable features, BACnet IP, which is the building and automation protocol that is pretty much the standard at this stage, and CANopen, which is useful as a field bus for a lot of different applications, especially those involving motion control. So in addition to these 2 new protocols, new to the micro OCS, you of course can still support WebMI as a licensed feature. Now let's talk about some of the details of the licensing that you really should know. First of all, we've really refined the process over the years. If you take a look at WebMI when it was first available and first licensed, the process was a little more involved than it is today. Now you can completely do it from entirely within Cscape, and it's really a very straightforward process. Now, the process is at its most simple if the computer that is running Cscape and licensing the OCS has internet access, and especially if your Cscape computer and the OCS you're licensing is all in the same room and has internet access. Then it's really, really straightforward. Now, when you license a unit, regardless of what protocol it is or regardless of what feature it is, you're going to need to buy a voucher code. And that voucher code can be purchased from your normal Horner distributor, or it can be purchased from the Horner website, from the web store on our website. Either one will work just fine. And in either case, it'll be delivered via email. Okay, so as soon as you order it and as soon as that order is processed, you'll receive an email that contains the voucher code so you can immediately start using it. Now, during the licensing process, you're actually going to need a micro SD card for your OCS. And with the exception of WebMI, for every other feature that you license, you don't have to have the micro SD at runtime, only at licensing time. But let's think about it. Micro SD cards are inexpensive. They unlock tons of functionality, including maintenance capabilities, data logging, you name it. So you really should have a micro SD card in every OCS that you use anyway. But you will need one for the licensing process. I've got a slide here, which is showing for each of the voucher types what the part number is. And in the case of WebMI, it's also showing what some of the parameters are for that particular voucher. And I'm not going to go through these one by one, but I've got it here so you can freeze frame it on replay and get the part number you need to order the voucher that you need to license your unit. Okay, now let's walk through a little bit the licensing process, but don't worry, I'm going to demonstrate it hands-on so you'll be able to see it in action. So what do we have to do before we start the licensing process? Well, we need to make sure that our OCS firmware and Cscape versions are up to date, at least if we're talking about the micro OCS and licensing something more than just WebMI. WebMI has been supported for some time in the micro. However, CANopen and BACnet IP are more, new capabilities. For those, you need 9.9 Cscape, Service Pack 9, as well as 15.7 firmware. Have to have that voucher code we talked about. You'll need the micro SD card we talked about. You'll need Cscape with internet access, at least if you want it to be as straightforward as possible. And you're going to want to make sure that the OCS you're going to be licensing is online with Cscape. Then you're going to navigate within Cscape to the area that contains the licensing trigger for the feature that you're licensing. So it varies a little bit depending on which feature you're licensing. So if you want to license WebMI, you go to the graphics editor. If you want to license CANopen, you need to go to the hardware configuration, that sort of thing. But we'll show you feature by feature where you need to go to get those licensed. Once you get to the right place in Cscape, there'll be a license button or an install validate license button that you can press. You're going to follow the instructions. Once those are complete, you're going to do a power cycle. You're going to double check the system menu to make sure the license is in there. If it's not, no big deal. You just go back into Cscape and Cscape will effectively retransfer the license file for you and you'll be good to go. So now let's show you where, for each of the different features that are licensable, let's show you where you need to go to actually do the licensing itself. Starting with WebMI, you go to the graphics editor. There is a WebMI menu in the graphics editor, and you select Display Validate WebMI License right from that menu. In the case of Enhanced IEC, of course, you need to have an IEC program open. But once you do that, you go to the Tools menu in the main area of Cscape. You go to Editor Options. And then when the dialog pops up, you go to the Compiler Options tab, and you'll find the Display/Validate License button. For MQTT Sparkplug, where do you find that? Well, again, from the main Cscape area, you go to the Program menu, select Messaging, and then from the pull-down on Messaging, you select MQTT. And then once you've selected the Controller tab in the MQTT configuration dialog, again, you'll see the Display Validate License button. Now, BACnet IP. Again, this is only required for the micro OCS because BACnet IP is included as a standard protocol with the XL series and the XL Prime series and the X5. So to license BACnet IP in a micro, go to Hardware Configuration, go to LAN 1, press Config, go to the Downloadable Protocol area, and in the Ethernet dropdown, you want to select BACnet IP Server, and then what will appear? A Display/Validate button. Okay, and then finally, for licensing CANopen in a micro OCS, again, CANopen is available in the XL series and the XL Prime series, a couple different ways. Let's talk about those before we dive into the micro OCS licensing of CANopen. So if you've got an XL series product, let's say an XL4, and you want to support CANopen in that, well, you've only got one CAN port on an XL4 or any other single port XL series product. So for that particular product, you actually need to go to the Horner website and find the CANopen version of firmware for the XL4, if that's your product, and then you do a firmware update. And then once you've done the firmware update, then your unit will only support CANopen. It'll no longer support Cscan. So that's how you do it on an XL series product like XL4, XL7, etc. Now in the XL Prime series, we actually have more memory in the XL Prime series. So in the XL Prime series, all the different variations of the CAN protocols are all embedded in the same firmware version. So you can just select it from the drop-down in the hardware configuration and you're good to go. But in the Micro OCS, it's a licensed feature. So in the Micro OCS, you go to the hardware configuration, you go to the CAN1 configuration area, select CANopen, and then once you've decided whether you're going to be applying a master or a slave, then it's going to pop up a dialog with the opportunity to select the display and validate license button. So that's where you can find the necessary tools to do your licensing for all those different features. Now let's go ahead and demonstrate how to add BACnet IP to a Micro OCS that's been upgraded to version 15.7 and Cscape 9.9 Service Pack 9. So here's the unit that we're going to license today. In our example, we're going to license it for both BACnet and for CANopen. Maybe an unusual scenario where you have two different features that you want to license in the same application, but I could see it happening with maybe BACnet and WebMI or CANopen and WebMI, whatever the case may be. Okay, so let's check a couple of prerequisites to make sure we're ready. This is a Micro OCS X7. Let's make sure that the firmware is new enough. It has to be 15.7 or later. So we're going to go to status and check that. And sure enough, we're at 15.7 or later. So that's terrific. We're good to go. If you have questions on how to do a firmware upgrade to 15.7 or later on a Micro OCS, last week's program that dealt with the Micro OCS and OCS-IO gave a complete demonstration of the process of doing the firmware upgrade over USB, which is how you do it. Okay, now in addition to looking at the firmware version, let's make sure we have a memory card installed in the unit. Okay, and we do. So we do have a memory card in there. And then finally, let's just double check and see what licensing may already exist in this unit. Well, as you can see, there's basically no license for sure on CANopen or BACnet IP. So this unit is not yet licensed and we need to make that happen. Okay, so that's the prerequisites on the unit side of things. Let's head over to Cscape and get that going. Okay, now before I dive into the Cscape side of things, I want to mention that in order to license a unit, you need a voucher code, and you purchase that voucher code either from your local Horner distributor or through the Horner website. And in either case, that voucher code will be delivered over email. So you can get it rather quickly after you've ordered it, okay? So as soon as the order is processed, you'll get an email that has your voucher code. And then what I've done before I started recording is I copied that voucher code from the file that was sent in the email. Now, for every feature you want to license, you need to go to the area in Cscape where that licensing is done. For BACnet and CANopen, that is done from the hardware configuration. So I'm going to hardware configuration and we're going to start with BACnet. So I'm going to go to LAN 1 config. Why LAN 1 config? Well, BACnet IP, which is what I'm doing, is an Ethernet protocol. So I hit the config button and then down under downloadable protocols, I take a look at the pull down list and I select BACnet IP server. And then what appears is a display validate button. Okay, so I can press the button here. All right, and now what's happening is Cscape, and my computer is connected over the internet, Cscape has gone out and checked not only the MAC address of the local OCS to find out which unit we're talking about, but it's also gone to check the Horner licensing server online to see if there's any license already established. And it's reporting that there is not, which is what we would expect. So I'll press OK here. And I'll press the Obtain License button here. And this is where I can paste in my voucher code, which I had ordered and received. Okay, so this is something you probably won't see though here. The voucher code I received from one of my coworkers at Horner, because I'm a Horner employee, was a multiple license. So it allowed me to license multiple units. So if you purchase this, you would either see no message at all, or you would see something like voucher has one license currently available. That's what you would typically see. So once I've pasted in my voucher code, I can hit apply voucher, and then Cscape has now applied the voucher code successfully. So it's telling me the unit needs to be power cycled to complete the licensing process. Okay, so I'm going to press OK and OK, and then I'll do it one more time and one more time after that. Now I'm going to go ahead and power cycle my OCS, and let's take a look at it as it reboots to see what we find. So I'm going to go back into the system menu, and I'm going to look under license details and see if that license has been applied yet. It has not. Okay, I'm not going to panic at this stage. All that means is I need to go back into Cscape and to continue. All right, so I'm heading to Cscape, and I'm going back where I was to the licensing area for BACnet, which was under hardware configuration, LAN 1, BACnet IP, display validate. So now Cscape is going and checking things out again. It's basically telling me that, okay, the server, the license server is saying, okay, there's an entry there, but for whatever reason, the license didn't get successfully downloaded the last time. So I'm going to go ahead and do that again. And it's telling me, okay, this unit now has a permanent license. All right, I'm going to go ahead and power cycle the unit one more time, and we'll go back in and double check that licensing area. Okay, so back to the system menu. All right, and back to the licensing details area. And this time, sure enough, our BACnet IP license is good. So it was actually good, probably, that everything didn't go absolutely perfect on that time, because it showed you what you can do if after you've downloaded the license, it doesn't show that you do have it. You can just go back into Cscape and then just correct the issue quickly. All right, so we now have BACnet applied to this particular unit. Next, let's take a look at licensing the same unit for CANopen. All right, so now let's add CANopen support to this particular micro OCS through the licensing process. Again, we have to make sure that we have new enough firmware, 15.7 or later. We did that before. We have to make sure we have a memory card installed. We did that before. So here we go. Let's go ahead and add CANopen support. All right, back to Cscape. Now I have copied the voucher number that I received via email that I will need as I license this unit for CANopen. So I've already done that before I started recording. So for CANopen, we go back to hardware configuration. Oops, not the screen, but we go to hardware configuration. There we go. And instead of going down here under Ethernet, remember CANopen is a CAN protocol. So we're going to select it from the list, select CANopen. We're going to hit the config button. It's going to ask us if we want to support CANopen as a master or a slave. So we make this selection first. I'm going to say master. Okay, gives me an error message. Don't worry about that. That's because nothing's been configured yet. Okay, so nothing to panic about. So I now have my display validate license button here ready to press. And since I'm online with the OCS and my computer's on the internet, we should be ready to go. All right, so I hit display validate license. It's telling me no CANopen license has been applied to this unit. No surprise, it's what we would have expected. Once again, we hit the obtain license button. We paste in this time our CANopen voucher code. Once again, because I work for Horner and I have a special multiple license voucher, it's giving me the ability to license multiple units with this particular voucher. But in your case, it'll either say voucher has 1 license available or 0 licenses available. All right, let's apply the voucher. Okay, it's telling me it was applied successfully and the unit needs to be power cycled. So I'm going to hit OK a few times. All right, it may give me another error message, which I'm not surprised by because there's no tag programmed yet down here under status. I'll hit OK one more time. I'll go ahead and power cycle the unit. And then let's take a look at the unit itself as it comes up. And we're going to double check and see if that license has been applied and if we need to take any more steps or not. So I'll hit license details. And there we go. CANopen license has been successfully applied. All right, so in this demonstration, or these two demonstrations, we've shown you how to effectively license a micro OCS for both BACnet IP and CANopen. Okay, so that's the material I wanted to share with you today. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. So, as a little bit of a sales message here, we feel like at Horner that our all-in-one controllers have a tremendous number of features and functions that are included for free. But there are some features that need to be added in the field or can be added in the field or licensed with a one-time upgrade fee. And there's absolutely no recurring fees or subscriptions. The licensing is on a per unit basis, and no future firmware upgrades that you want to do on a unit that's previously been licensed will have any impact on the functionality of that feature. That's our material for today. If you're watching this live, I would encourage you to watch tomorrow, where Wednesday, May 3rd at 2 o'clock, so 24 hours from now effectively, we are having a new IO-Link webinar. So Horner has just announced, or will be announcing tomorrow, I should say, that we're supporting IO-Link. So you're not going to want to miss the launch webinar available to the public, where we're going to go through what products are available, all the details that you need to know so you have a feeling for or an understanding of the products for IO-Link that will be supported by Horner. And I'm really looking forward to this particular webinar tomorrow. We had one for our sales channel partners last week. And I'm also looking forward to some IO-Link technical content that we'll share with you later in the month. So you'll want to check out our live stream schedule for May, and you'll find at least one IO-Link related technical topic. Okay, it's trade show season. I'm excited because later this month, it's already May, I'm going to be at Automate 2023 in Detroit, Michigan. Now, I grew up in Michigan, so I love going back to Detroit. I'm a Lions fan. You call me a glutton for punishment if you want, but we're looking up a little bit these years. But I'm always looking forward to getting back to Detroit, and also looking forward to spending some time with customers, talking about their applications, and showing off some new products that won't be ready for sale yet, but that we'll be previewing that will be available for sale later in 2023. So if you're able to come to the Automate show in Detroit, Michigan, May 22nd through the 25th, I'd highly encourage you to do that. And this is the portion of the program where I let you know we're here every Tuesday at 2 o'clock, either fully live or streaming a pre-recorded video live. Somebody's standing by. Pretty often, it's our product manager, Casey Gardner, that you can ask questions of or give them your ideas. Wouldn't miss that opportunity when it's there for you. Next week, I'm excited because I'm going to be covering a new topic here, which is using an Ethernet barcode reader with the Horner OCS. We've covered using your traditional serial-based, RS-232-based barcode readers here before. We're going to be covering Ethernet-based barcode readers. And thanks to the fine folks at DataLogic, we've got some equipment to work with, and I believe they're even going to be joining us to talk about some of the capabilities of doing barcode reading in this approach. So don't hesitate to join us next week as we go through Ethernet barcode reading. If you haven't subscribed to our channel already, consider subscribing, and if you choose notifications, then you'll be notified every time we go live or every time we post a new video. And as always, subscribing doesn't cost anything. Okay, so if you're watching this live, join us tomorrow for the IO-Link webinar, or join us next week for the Ethernet barcode scanning episode that we're going to be covering. And until then, let's all get out there and do us some good.